Good morning, y'all. I'm Catherine Ross of TheStreet. I am here on the floor of the NYSE with Jim Cramer. Jim, we were just talking about Marley. Can you tell everyone his new name?
Look, there's a lot of people who dispute me that I said to get out of Nvidia, which is in trouble. It's ridiculous because first of all, we sold it for action alerts. Second, in our teaching, I said it's gonna miss. So it was like one of my finest moments. And what people don't realize is that you have to follow me in a continuum. If I like a stock, and then it gets to too high and something's wrong, I say get rid of the stock. I mean, unless I feel that it has really incredible long-term value, you can go through the valley. People who don't take action alerts, who criticize me, aren't seeing the continuum. And the reason I bring this up is because Everest, when the stock was in the 260s, I had named my dog Everest, much to the chagrin of Lisa. I had renamed him Nvidia. Why? Because he was one of the great performers of all time. He's a rescue dog. So Everest was Nvidia. When the stock hit an unsustainable level and I said it was going to miss the quarter, I renamed him Everest, okay? That was the signal to really get out of Nvidia because Everest was no Nvidia. He never answered Nvidia unless you had a treat in your hand. So today, in honor of Xilinx, okay, I've renamed, until otherwise, Marley. Now let's see how he answers to Xilinx.
I think Xilinx
is a fabulous dog name.
Many dogs are named Marley,
right? Many dogs are named Marley.
That's true.
How many dogs are named Xilinx?
Not many.
Yeah.
You might be the only one.
Right, so he's Xilinx because Xilinx is now the new Nvidia.
But Marley had trouble responding to Marley, didn't he?
He's dumb as a bag of hammers. It's really very frightening.
So you might need a treat in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, wow, he's stupid. I mean, here's what he does. I know this is a little off focus because this is our video, but there isn't anything he won't eat. Nothing. So he eats cardboard and then he spits it out. He eats paper all the time. He spits it, plastic. He spits it out. He ate a blanket, literally shredded it, and then he spits it out. So I mean, he doesn't know the concept of food. But you know what? Xilinx doesn't need any fuel either. Xilinx is going up.
All right, let's switch over to PG&E because they announced bankruptcy this morning.
Yeah,
probably when you had just woken up
stock.
around 3:30.
I was up at 3:30. The common stock, they were talking about doing it last night at 9:40. The common stock, people are betting that the common stock's going to have value. Typically, thank you, Matt Horwey, when you look at the prefers, those are the better values. I've not done the work. I'm just pointing it out. That before people go nuts and buy the common, the preferred and maybe even some bonds might be better value. One of the things I want to do with TheStreet is bring in some more fixed income coverage and we'll do it. We're doing a lot of new stuff. And you look at what Zev's doing with the remake, Jeff and Zev, follow my Twitter feed. We're just reacting to what members want. Improvement. Self-improvement is really close to godliness. So, yeah, you got me.
This morning, you were writing about Nvidia in your Real Money column.
Oh my God! Well, what I tried to do was explain to people how I'm trying to distinguish between what stocks do and companies do, and the irrationality of stocks. So, for instance, Nvidia really blows up. So you would think, it was a horrendous downturn. The stock breaks down to 125, 128. On the reason why, it's that because the gaming cards were too much used crypto. The same card that works for gaming allows you to mine crypto. So they realized they had a big inventory bulge. But they felt that gaming was going to be so strong, the inventory bulge would wear off. Then gaming slowed, particularly in China. Okay, they cited China. And then data centers closed, which is an interesting read through to AMD. Now, Intel said the data center had an indigestion. People felt that was Intel not doing that well. No, Bob Swan was saying it was indigestion. Nvidia saying data center not that good. So what is the read through there? AMD, it's problematic. AMD's gaming is problematic. AMD's crypto, problematic. So we have to be careful because I think that Lisa Su is fabulous. But the ultimate takeaway on that piece of my Real Money piece was Nvidia should be much lower. Now, we caught a bunch of downgrades today. And if Nvidia, on all those downgrades, and Bank of America took it off its US 1 list, which I always think makes it sound like the post road, US 1. Morgan Stanley downgraded, hideous downgrade. But UBS said, which didn't like it, went from hold to buy. So that's the battleground of today. The battleground is Nvidia. The key to the market is 3M, which is up despite the fact that 3M is a textbook case of why there are so many stupid people and we see them in action. And sometimes what I would like is when you see these pre-market trades, I want the names associated. Oh, look, Joel sold it at 187. Oh, look, Steve bagged it at 186. Holy cow, Herman just came in at 185. Because the stock is up 12 from where these guys were selling it. Why is that? Because they guided, it wasn't that bad a quarter, and the healthcare business turned around. And the guide down was not so serious, and it changed it from 2 to 4 organic to 1 to 4, which in this market, after the stock has come down a lot, like at Dover, it's a rally time. So I need to know, was it Steve that sold it at 189, or was it Jimbo?
So you want to make it kind of like a stock social media?
Yes, you have to know who did it. So we can, I taught once when I was teaching at Goldman. I used to teach Friday night from, God bless you over there. I used to teach Friday night from, I always kept people waiting because that was the gist of it. I kept people waiting 8 to 11. And what I did was I gave a test at 11 o'clock on Friday nights. This is teaching the people in my class after me. And what I always did, because I am just a true son of a whatever, is I posted the 5 lowest scores in the people's names. Because, sometimes you got to get the truth out there. So when you see Pfizer down, and I said on air, when Pfizer was down $1, just go buy it because it wasn't as bad as I thought. And the stock is now up. 3M, go buy it. Why? It wasn't bad as I thought. The wasn't as bad as I thought is the theme. Now, Verizon wasn't down. So it wasn't as bad as I thought. It wasn't as good as I thought. See, it wasn't as good as I thought because it was up. It wasn't as bad as I thought if it was down. Pfizer. Get me?
I get you. All right, let's switch over and talk about Apple, because you mentioned Apple, which is real money stock of the day.
We are really giving great coverage on it. Stock of the day, we always give great coverage.
One thing that
we arrive at the stock of the day, by the way, at 4 a.m. I go back and forth with Martin.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you real quick because I was talking to Kevin Curran, who is our real money reporter, and he was asking me to ask you, actually, if Apple is going to be bad, and if the
question is how bad.
How bad. The question is how bad, which you've said before.
No, I'm just going to be very clinical about this, okay? Forget Apple. My experience when you have a pre-announcement is that you do not get a bounce back the next quarter. So if you pre-announce that the fourth quarter is bad, you should not expect to get a first quarter forecast that is good. That is what, forget if it's Apple. Let's say it's Nucor. Let's say it's 3M. It doesn't matter. If you say pre-announcement, it means that this quarter historically has been bad for every other company. Now, maybe we see a service stream that's not as bad, whatever. But what's happened, that's what you have to worry about. And what's going up here are the stocks where they had come down, and you ended up guiding up. United Technologies, okay? They guided down, and then you went up, but not as much, 3M. And then there's the guide down, and you don't do the guide down, and that's Nvidia, and that's what Apple people have to be worried about.
So can we tell in Apple, ahead of Apple's earnings, can we tell how bad they're going to be because of the semiconductors?
No, the read-through there is not that great. And a lot of people are starting to think about Skyworks as a 5G. That's the one that's closely aligned to it. I think 5G is going to help them. Can't obviously look at Qualcomm, which is a total mess. But what we're really looking at is paradigmatic thinking about Apple, about 3M, about Pfizer. And Apple, if you have a pre-announcement, you cannot necessarily historically accept a snapback. That doesn't mean that this one won't have the snapback. But historically, no snapback. And that's really important, Catherine, because, I want to lay it out there. Could it be the 1 in 10? I mean, I wrote a book called Real Money, and in it I analyzed many, many pre-announcements. And I could not find a single pre-announcement where the next quarter was better. I couldn't find a single one.
I want to switch over to Huawei because last night the U.S. announced that they're officially seeking charges, and I'm wondering, last week on our show you talked about how China should not be seeking another Cold War with the U.S.
Well, I mean, look, the Huawei case, if you look at it, is based on they stole intellectual property from T-Mobile.
But is this just us almost asking for a Cold War with China? No, the U.S.
look, we want to, I always keep referring, because since nobody's read it, the October 4th speech by Pence, where he is talking about a new Cold War hegemony, stopping the hegemony. Now, let me just give you an example while I've got you, okay? Look at Venezuela, all right? Now, Venezuela is obviously just a terrible situation, right? People are hungry and the inflation's ridiculous. So we decide that we're going to, of the 500,000 barrels a day, we're going to put that kind of in escrow for the new regime. What people don't realize is that China technically will own Venezuela, other than the Russians if they default. But the Chinese in the Belt and Road Initiative, if you owe them money, they seize ports. They'll seize the oil. I mean, that's what they'll do. So the United States may not understand, unless you can get a repudiation, and a repudiation of the debt that's owed to China because a new government comes in. People have to recognize that that's China's strategy, which is to make these states client states. And that's what Venezuela will be if we're not careful. Client state. A lot of people feel it's going to be a client state of Russia. But I think that, which has lent Venezuela a lot of money because they're trying to stir up any Cold War they can get, the pissant country they are. But China is Belt and Road Initiative, and we'll see. Will they take over Venezuela? If Venezuela defaults, it's entirely possible.
In light of the PG&E news, do you have any actionable advice for investors?
On PG&E? Mm-hmm. Go for bonds if you think it's going to work. That's why I say, don't go for common, because common so often gets diluted in these things in the bankruptcy courts. Very rarely does the common come out and have the same value as you're buying it right now. Very rarely. Again, I'm looking at these situations where my history of my knowledge, I'm putting to work my knowledge. That doesn't mean my knowledge couldn't be wrong in this instance, but my knowledge is based on multiple years of looking about what, like the Ford Preferred. Ford didn't go bankrupt, but the Ford Preferred did much better than the Ford Common. So let's do a little more homework than just reaching for the Common. Okay, a little more homework.
All right, so over on Action Alerts Plus, we're going to talk about Apple's earnings, Amgen, J&J, Danaher announced this morning.
Sure.
All right, so Jim, thanks so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure.
Again, no disrespect to Nvidia, but Xilinx is the new Nvidia.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.